Welcome to our channel. We're so glad you're here with us today. Before we dive into this incredible story, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Whether you're tuning in from across the globe or right around the corner, we love hearing from our viewers. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on our next special story coming your way tomorrow. Stay tuned and let's get started. Paparazzo's last shot turned into a career-killing nightmare. Jake Turner once ruled the tabloid scene in London. At 43, he had built a reputation as the go-to photographer for capturing the raw, unguarded moments of the rich and famous. In the height of his career, Jake was unstoppable. His photos graced the front pages of magazines and newspapers worldwide. He'd snapped compromising pictures of high-profile celebrities, exposing their deepest secrets and earning himself both fortune and infamy. One of his most infamous shots, a duchess caught in a compromising position with her bodyguard, sold for 6 figures. The world had feared him, and the tabloids depended on him. In his prime, the photo editors at the Daily Expos were always on the lookout for the latest scandal, and Jake delivered. His shots were explosive, the kind that could make or break careers. His success came at a cost, of course. His relentless pursuit of the perfect shot, no matter the consequence, earned him a reputation that was both feared and envied by his peers. His Chelsea flat had been paid for by his sharp eye and quick reflexes. Yet, as time passed, everything changed. The very industry that once made him a king of the paparazzi jungle started to slip away. The rise of smartphones and social media turned everyone into a photographer, and the celebrity scandals that once made him a star became public knowledge before Jake even had a chance to capture them. Web platforms and social media now dictated what the world saw, and the demand for sensationalism only grew. Jake was suddenly outdated, his equipment, once cutting edge, now obsolete. The younger photographers, with their newer gear and fresh connections, had begun scooping up the major stories he once dominated. His editor at the Daily Expos, who had once eagerly awaited Jake's exclusive shots, now sent his work back with blunt notes about how his images were missing the mark. Jake was in a crisis. His editor's email burned in his mind. "These aren't cutting it anymore, Marin. We need something compelling, something new." His rent was 2 months overdue. The pressure was mounting. He needed something big, something that would make him relevant again. That's when he saw it, a royal guard standing motionless outside Buckingham Palace. And Jake knew that, this time, the perfect shot could save him. Jake's frustration boiled over. With the industry leaving him behind and his bank account draining, he couldn't afford to sit back any longer. His reputation was fading faster than his chance at a comeback. The rejection from his editor at the Daily Expos was still fresh in his mind. "These aren't cutting it anymore, Marin. We need something new. Something compelling," the email had said. His editor, once eager for Jake's shots, now criticized him for being slow, out of touch. Younger photographers were scooping up the stories Jake used to dominate, and it stung. His old gear, once top of the line, felt more like a weight than an asset. The paparazzi jungle had changed. With smartphones in everyone's pocket and social media turning every citizen into a photographer, the market for sensational celebrity photos had shrunk. It wasn't just the tech. Jake wasn't fast enough anymore. He'd been outpaced by younger, hungrier photographers. He could see it every time he clicked the shutter. His shots were just missing the spark, the edge they once had. He felt irrelevant. He hadn't had a true get in weeks, and now his rent was 2 months overdue. That morning, his eyes scanned the scene outside Buckingham Palace. A royal guard stood motionless, a figure of strength and tradition, his rifle resting across his body with perfect precision. To anyone else, it was just another piece of the royal ceremony, a tourist attraction. But to Jake, it was an opportunity. He had a feeling, a gut instinct. This was it. This was his shot. The guard, Sergeant Chris Williams, stood perfectly still, his posture unyielding. But to Jake, that stillness looked like an obstacle. He needed something dramatic, something that would break the monotony. He needed something explosive, something that would catch the eye of every editor in the world. Something that would force them to notice him again. Jake's eyes narrowed as he watched the guard. His camera, an old Canon telephoto lens, felt heavy in his hands, but his mind was sharp. He had to make a move. The royal motorcade was coming. His heart raced as the crowd began to stir, excitement buzzing in the air. He could feel the tension build. But the guard, Sergeant Williams, was still there, standing in his way. It was now or never. In that moment, Jake knew what he had to do. Without hesitation, he pushed forward, stepping into the restricted area, inching closer to the guard. His desperation was clouding his judgment, but he didn't care. He just needed the shot. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he edged closer to Sergeant Chris Williams. The royal motorcade was only minutes away, and with every passing second, the pressure mounted. He could feel the excitement in the air, the hum of anticipation from the photographers around him, but none of them were in his position. None of them had the angle he had. But there was one thing standing in his way: the royal guard. Jake's eyes locked onto Sergeant Williams, still as a statue, his rifle positioned across his body with perfect precision. The guard's posture was flawless, but Jake's frustration bubbled to the surface. The stillness that had once seemed like a symbol of discipline and duty now felt like an obstacle, a challenge that Jake couldn't ignore. He had to get past him. He had to get the shot. He needed something explosive, something that would get him back on top. His editor's words echoed in his mind. We need something new, something compelling. The closer Jake got to the guard, the more he could feel the tension building. The line between professionalism and desperation was blurring. The palace liaison had already warned him to step back, but Jake ignored it. He wasn't going to let anything stop him. This was his last chance. Sergeant Williams, a towering figure in his scarlet uniform, showed no sign of shifting. To the tourists, he was a living statue, part of the pageantry of the monarchy. But Jake, with his well-honed instincts, knew better. The guard wasn't just standing still. He was calculating. His military training, honed through years of service in hostile zones, kept him rooted to the spot, unwavering. He was a soldier, not a performer. Jake, however, wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking about his career, about the shot that would save him. The motorcade was getting closer, the excitement palpable. The other photographers were jockeying for position, and Jake was running out of time. His mind raced, calculating the best angle, the best frame. But it was the guard, standing still, blocking his perfect shot, that consumed him. In one swift motion, driven by years of chasing the perfect photo, Jake lunged forward. His shoulder collided with Sergeant Williams, knocking him slightly off balance. The guard stumbled, his rifle slipping from his grasp for just a second. But it was enough. Jake's camera clicked, capturing frame after frame of the royal motorcade, the diplomat inside, the perfect shot that could revive his career. But as Jake reveled in his victory, a heavy silence fell over the crowd. The tourists stopped in their tracks, and even the other photographers lowered their cameras in disbelief. Jake, oblivious to the magnitude of his actions, failed to realize that this wasn't just about the perfect shot anymore. He had crossed a line. The moment Jake's camera clicked, he felt a rush of triumph. He had the shot. The angles were perfect. The royal motorcade, the diplomat inside, everything fell into place. For a brief, intoxicating second, Jake thought this was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the shot that would put him back on top. His heart raced as he quickly checked his camera's display, a grin spreading across his face as the images appeared. Clear, intimate, and exactly the kind of unguarded moments his career had once thrived on. But as the initial thrill of success washed over him, the air around him shifted. The crowd, once buzzing with excitement, fell eerily silent. The tourists who had been capturing the ceremony on their phones froze, their eyes wide. Even the other photographers, who had been jockeying for position just moments before, lowered their cameras in stunned disbelief. Something had happened. Jake felt it, but couldn't understand it. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw it. Sergeant Chris Williams, the Royal Guard, had regained his composure. Despite the disruption, the guard stood tall, his stance as precise as ever. But there was something different now. The stillness wasn't ceremonial anymore. It had transformed into something sharper, more intense. His posture had changed, his expression hardening. Jake, still holding his camera, felt the weight of his actions finally settling in. He had crossed a line, not just into the restricted area, but into something deeper, a place of disrespect that he hadn't fully understood. The silence was broken by a voice from the crowd, a voice that carried a sharp edge. "In all my years," an elderly man shouted, his tone laced with disgust, "I've never seen such a disgraceful display of disrespect to the Queen's Guard." Others around him murmured in agreement, their voices rising with anger. Jake's stomach churned. He had been so focused on the shot, on reviving his career, that he hadn't considered the consequences of his actions. The reality of what he had done hit him like a slap to the face. Security personnel began to move toward him, their steps deliberate and swift. But Jake, still clutching his camera, tried to maintain his defiant posture. "I got the shot," he muttered under his breath, trying to justify his actions to himself. But deep down, he knew the truth was far different. His camera had captured a moment, yes, but at what cost? As the officers approached, a sense of dread washed over him. The reality was sinking in. His reckless pursuit of fame, of one last big story, had cost him more than just the shot. It had cost him his integrity, his career, and possibly his future in the industry. Sergeant Williams, still standing at attention, never flinched. The guard's unyielding presence now felt like a reminder of duty, of respect, and of the line Jake had crossed. As security moved toward Jake, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. He had thought the shot would be his redemption, the one thing that would put him back on the map. But now, as the officers closed in, his camera felt heavy in his hands, a stark reminder of the line he had crossed. The moment he had fought so hard for now felt hollow, like a fleeting victory that would cost him everything. The crowd, once buzzing with excitement, had transformed into a chorus of disapproval. The tourists, who had been eagerly snapping pictures just moments ago, now stood in stunned silence, some with their phones still raised, capturing the unfolding scene. The other photographers, who had once seen Jake as the king of their world, now turned away in disbelief. Jake's reputation, carefully built over the years, was crumbling before his eyes, and there was no one to blame but himself. Sergeant Chris Williams, standing at attention as if nothing had happened, had regained his composure with remarkable discipline. But the transformation in the guard's posture wasn't lost on Jake. It wasn't the same ceremonial stillness anymore. It was the posture of a soldier, assessing a threat, standing ready to take action if needed. The realization hit Jake hard. He hadn't just disrespected a ceremonial guard, he had assaulted an active duty soldier. And that soldier's unwavering discipline was a powerful reminder of the line between respect and exploitation. "Your press credentials are revoked," a senior security officer announced, his voice steady but firm. "You'll be escorted off the premises." Jake's heart dropped. The words felt like a death sentence to his career. Not only had he lost access to the royal events that had made him famous, but the manner of his disgrace would follow him for the rest of his life. His once coveted access was now gone, and no editor would ever risk associating with someone who had disrespected the very institution he had once thrived on. As he was led away, Jake saw the other photographers whispering among themselves. A spokesperson from one of the more respected publications stepped forward, offering a formal apology to the guard and the entire regiment. The press, the very group that had once envied Jake's every move, was now distancing itself from him. His last shot, one he had thought would save him, was now a symbol of his fall from grace. The tourists who had once viewed the guards as living statues now saw them for what they truly were, real soldiers, worthy of respect. The incident, which had begun as a simple photo op, had transformed into a powerful lesson in military discipline, tradition, and the real meaning behind the Royal Guard's service. For Jake, the consequences of his reckless pursuit of fame were now undeniable. His career, his reputation, and his understanding of respect were all shattered in the blink of an eye. We'd love to hear from you. After watching this intense moment unfold, what do you think about the actions of Jake Turner? Was he simply desperate to stay relevant in a rapidly changing industry? Or did he cross a line that no professional should ever cross? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where the pressure to succeed led you to make a questionable decision? We're also curious about your thoughts on the role of the Royal Guards. To many, they're just a part of the ceremony. But as we saw in this story, they represent something much more profound. What does respect for military tradition mean to you? And how do you think moments like these impact how we view our soldiers and their sacrifices? Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from too. It's always amazing to see how these stories reach people across the world. Don't forget to like and share this video with someone who might find it just as thought-provoking. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on our next compelling story. We can't wait to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going.